Welcome to another instalment of the pharmaphorum podcast. My name's Dominic Tyre, and I'm pharmaphorum's creative and editorial director. For episode 36, Richard Staines, pharmaphorum's news editor, spoke to Andrew Meade from Accenture about the trends that emerged in this year's Q1 results season. Meade talked about the prospects for the industry as the UK and other economies begin to recover from the devastating pandemic. He also discussed how COVID vaccines have raised the profile of the pharma industry in the perception of the general public. You can find more details of this episode, including a download link for the podcast and information about other instalments in the series at pharmaphorum.com/podcast. The Pharmaphorum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher and Podbean, where you can find and subscribe to it by searching for Pharmaphorum.
So welcome to today's Pharmaphorum podcast with Andrew Meade, UK and Ireland Life Sciences Lead at Accenture. And we're going to talk about the Q1 results season. And the first question I'd like to ask you, Andrew, is what sections of pharma fared well in Q1 and which didn't do so well?
So, hey, Richard. So, look, I actually think the sector as a whole did very well. You look at some of the companies out there, some of them had great results and some of them are showing great promise. And in fact, you can almost say you've got the guys who are well in advance with the vaccine and those that aren't. For people like Moderna, Pfizer, J&J, and AstraZeneca, Q1 has been fantastic. And I think actually what they've done has been great for the industry as a whole. I think it's created much more awareness of these companies. People would talk about big pharma in the past, but I wonder how many people would have had, AstraZeneca or Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson or Moderna at the tip of their tongue as the way they do today. And I think this is great because actually, I think what those brands have achieved, what those companies are doing is building trust for the industry, which I think is a great and a positive thing. And I think, when you looked at the Q1 results, you saw, some of those guys who have really accelerated through some of the R&D phases to get the vaccine out and about have also been able to show their shareholders and people who are vested in them that they've got great new revenue streams as a consequence of their endeavors. I think you also saw there is different types of companies in the sense that you've got some companies who are, in different stages of the reinvention. There are some who have got pipelines that are supercharged and ready to go. And really now it's about maximizing the value and the future of those pipelines. And there are some companies who are reinventing themselves and creating new pipelines and new drugs. But I think all in all, I think the sector is in a great place. And I actually think in Q1, you saw the economic importance of a healthy life science sector, in particular for the UK. And I think it's all goodness.
Thanks very much. And so a year on from the start of the pandemic, what's been the lasting impact of COVID-19 on pharma?
So I think there's a number of things. So first and foremost, I think our scientists and the people in the pharma companies have always been great about talking about the patient, talking about collaboration, talking about digitization, and they're very cerebral and very smart. But sometimes the chat around doing all these things isn't quite aligned with the actions around making these things happen. I think what's been really fantastic over the last year is the degree of collaboration across companies and actually between companies and academia, and actually between companies from different industry groups to solve for supply chain and manufacturing as well as for the vaccine. So I think number one thing is real action, real collaboration to solve for a world problem. Then I think the second thing is, COVID has restricted all of our movements. And we think about movement, we must think about, the patient who wants to get to a clinical trial. And sometimes that clinical trial is a last stop shop and hope for a cure or a better life. Also, just patients just getting general treatment, people who are on regular therapies, people who've got chronic diseases and need to engage with their physicians. I think all these different groups now have new ways of connecting and being part of the story without having to be physically present in the hospitals or physically in front of the physician or other places. And I think embracing digital to enable clinical trials to continue embracing digital to enable patients to get diagnosis, embracing digital to allow patients to actually continue the treatment, I think is a huge change and a powerful change. And then, of course, in amongst all the people who like to move it out and about, there's the sales reps and other parts of the pharma company who want to go out and see the HCPs. And for them, I think the fact that a lot of their engagement over the last year has been courtesy of, Zoom or Teams or other things has been really interesting, because it's actually afforded them an opportunity to spend longer, ironically, with some of the healthcare providers that they normally engage with. And I think in that longer dialogue, they have the opportunity to really show themselves as useful individuals who can help the carer or the physician or whoever it might be develop a better understanding of their therapeutic. When you've got 15 minutes as opposed to a few minutes, you can share some thinking, you can share some data, you can share some research, and you can make the whole interaction really, really valuable and less self-serving. So I think those are fantastic things. And I guess my hope is that we've always believed in the importance of the physical sales force and getting this physical sales force out to see the healthcare providers. We've always believed in the importance of the patient sitting firmly in front of the doctor to have that discussion and consultation, and even aspects of the diagnosis. But COVID has really kicked off some innovation and forced us to embrace some digital and mobile technologies that have been there for a while, but we haven't been as quick to move on them as we might have been. And COVID has caused an acceleration in some of that stuff. And I guess what I'm really keen on and what I'd love to see is I want this moment to be one for us to build on. And by that, what I mean is, you have a choice. You can continue to accelerate the digital and mobile path. And I think that really is Renaissance moment stuff. Or you can choose to say, okay, you know what, we can now get out and about. We've all been vaccinated. Let's go. And I think that would be a shame in terms of if we go back to the old habits and the old behaviors, as opposed to using the new capabilities, the new technologies, or the technologies that we haven't embraced with gusto in the past. If we lose that moment, I think that'd be a real shame. So I think really embracing the tech is actually allowing us to be more useful to the healthcare provider, to be more useful to the patient, and actually to really change the dynamics of how we look after patients in general. And I think the whole purpose of our industry ultimately is to solve for the patient and to ensure and to create a better outcome for them. And I think COVID has really helped us think differently, behave differently, act differently. And I think that kind of collaboration, digitization, and other things is just goodness.
Thanks very much. And talking about maybe the financials more, how do you see the pandemic affecting the industry in the coming year?
In terms of the financials of the industry, I think, as you know, for some of the companies who are going to play a very significant role in the vaccine, it's going to be a big revenue item. And the vaccine is not, it will be a moment in time, but it'll be a moment in time that's going to last, I think, for several years. And the vaccine is something that's going to require multiple shots, it's going to require boosters and other things. So these are real revenue streams. And for some companies, you're going to see them set up vaccine divisions within their business where they've not had them in the past. And for others, you're going to see those that have got vaccine businesses adding this into the mix. And it will be a significant revenue item for some of those companies. So financially, I think that's a good thing. I think the second thing is the innovation and the digitization stuff we described earlier. I think done properly, I think it's going to allow us to do more with less and to do more faster. So I think economically for the companies, accelerating R&D has always been a holy grail type topic. This has shown how you can accelerate, how you can collaborate and move faster. And I think as well, if you look in the industry, the regulators and others, they will always be fastidious. They will always do the right thing in terms of protecting the patient. But I think even they have seen how we can move faster. The faster we move, the sooner we get drugs out there, the sooner we can commercialize and get more out of their economic life as well. But more importantly, actually, the sooner we can get great medicine out to the patient. And like I said, ultimately, the guys who are leading in our industry, they think about the science, they think about the purpose of the science and what the science can do. And I think it's all goodness.
Just as a sort of supplementary question, what do you think? Do you think this World Trade Organization proposal to waive patents on vaccines, on COVID vaccines, will be a financial headwind in the coming year?
Look, I think that's a really interesting one because, these are sophisticated products, so you can waive the IP all you want. You have to have the ability to safely manufacture these things at scale for it to have impact. I think when you look at the industry, you'll see that some of the key players are already on the vaccine journey in a not-for-profit manner. And I think, again, kudos to them for doing that. I think that's the right sentiment and the right thing to solve. And I think that it's the kind of sentiment that gets the collaboration moving between the governments, the healthcare companies, the legislators, and the patients.
And great, thanks very much. And so, what about just future trends? I think you've covered quite a lot of this kind of stuff already, but I was thinking in terms of perhaps maybe kind of technology trends. For instance, things like the mRNA technology that's allowed some of the vaccines to be made and that kind of thing. Do you see any kind of trends like that are going to maybe?
Yeah. So first of all, what's interesting is the mRNA progress through this has been fantastic, and also a year or two ago, if you talked about mRNA and you talked about the cold chain issues and everything else, people would say, it's a bit of complexity. Is it manageable? Pfizer and the guys have managed that really, really well. So I think, one, that technology is exciting and we'll see more developments in that space. Two, I think, you saw the power of the collaboration between, AstraZeneca and Oxford. I think more collaboration between academia and pharmaceutical companies is going to be great. Is going to be there. I think more investments around the universities to enable that will be a strategic pillar for all. I see that, for every world economy, every big economy like the UK, the importance of having a thriving life science sector and making sure it's supported, protected, and invested in, I think is going to be there as well. I think collaboration between companies is going to be key. I always think we look across the patch and say, the more we can share in a responsible patient data and patient insights, the quicker we'll be able to solve for patients as well. And I think there's a really great opportunity to do more with patient data, patient diagnostics, and other things to create, again, better outcomes for the patients. And then I think, of course, you're going to see more M&A in the industry, as you're seeing, for example, right this second with AstraZeneca and Alexa.
Right. Well, thanks very much. That's all my questions. Look forward to perhaps catching up with you again in the future. Thanks for helping us with this podcast.
Pleasure, Richard.
And that concludes episode 36 of the pharmaphorum podcast and Richard Staines' discussion with Accenture's Andrew Meade about the trends that emerged in this year's Q1 results season. You can find more details of this episode, including a download link for the podcast and information about other instalments in the series at pharmaphorum.com/podcast. The pharmaphorum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, and Podbean, where you can find and subscribe to it by searching for pharmaphorum. And don't forget to visit our website to sign up for daily or weekly email pharmaceutical news and analysis bulletins. And follow us on Twitter, where we are at pharmaphorum.